Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Catherine and this is Raspberry Reads. As I'm filming this video, I've had a very considerable increase in subscribers. I think over 100 subscribers in the past few days. So thank you all those new subscribers for joining. I think my latest video on historical fiction recommendations seems to have gone down well on booktube, and I'm really happy about that because I enjoyed making that video so much, and historical fiction is one of my favorite genres and I'm very passionate about history. So yeah, thank you to all my returning subscribers for being here, and thank you to all of my new subscribers for joining me. On my channel I talk about historical fiction, I like to talk about literary fiction, dystopian, some non-fiction, mostly sort of natural history or climate, environmental type non-fiction works. And yeah, I also like a good sort of thriller, crime, that sort of thing. But yeah, welcome, and let's get into today's video. So today's video is going to be kind of a heartfelt one for me, but one that I really wanted to make. So this is some recommendations for fathers, or whoever you have in your life who may be a father figure, or anybody who likes to read history, particularly non-fiction history or historical fiction. So this video is in recognition of Father's Day, and it is basically a compilation of all the books that have recently come out with that I wish I could have shared with my dad. So I used to buy him probably 2 books for both his birthday in March and then Christmas. We weren't really big on gifts for Father's Day, but I'm sure I would have spoken to him about these books. And I know that I would have gifted some of these to him in the past year or so. But as I can't do that, I wanted to share them with you because some of these I definitely want to read, and I know for a fact that there will be lots of people out there who this will be their jam. So this is in a way sort of recommendations from my dad for you. So yes, without waffling on, let's just get right into it. Sorry if I'm scratching today, I've got really bad allergies. They're all out today. But yeah, so I've got 12 books to share with you, and the majority of these are non-fiction, but we do have a few fiction books in here as well. So the first one is How Westminster Works and Why It Doesn't by Dunt. So he's a political journalist, and this guide to the British political system just came out in paperback in March. So obviously the hardcover came out a little bit earlier. And so from what I can understand, this nonfiction work basically looks at our current political system and the government in the UK, and I guess using his political journalist expertise, Dunt posits some potential solutions. And I thought this was a really serendipitous choice to give you, given that they just announced a general election this summer. So yeah, maybe if you or somebody you know, maybe a father figure in your life is interested in politics and why they're in a bit of a mess in the UK, then perhaps they would like to read this book. So yes, that's Dunt, How Westminster Works and Why It Doesn't. The second book that I wanted to recommend is a fiction work, and this also came out this year, and this is James by Percival Everett. So this book I've mentioned on my channel before. It is all over booktube. It seems to be being very well received and quite popular, and James is a modern retelling of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, but from Jim's perspective, and Jim was the black man who accompanied Huck on his adventures. Yeah, so I'm really interested in picking this one up soon. And Huckleberry Finn, well, I'm not sure if Huckleberry Finn, Mark Twain was one of my dad's favorite authors, but I don't know if he particularly enjoyed Huckleberry Finn, but his writing in general he enjoyed. I actually just finished listening to Huckleberry Finn, the unabridged version, and I will talk about that in a wrap-up, and I wanted to listen to the original before getting to James, so I'm really interested in picking this one up, and I'm sure my dad would have been interested in James as well. If you have read James already, without spoiling it, please let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. Next up, we have another non-fiction recommendation, and I should note before I talk about the remainder of these that my dad was really into naval history, like ship history, boats. So a lot of the recommendations here have to do with history in general, but there are a few to do with shipwrecks, exploration adventures, that sort of thing. So yes, this recommendation is The Wager, A Tale of Shipwreck, Mutiny and Murder by David Grann, and the paperback came out in January in the UK. And so The Wager is about the British ship called The Wager, which was from the 1740s. And from what I understand, this ship was following a Spanish ship looking for treasure, and then they went aground somewhere near Patagonia, and then the ship appeared again, and the crew were even more bedraggled and the ship was even more broken. And then a court case ensues back in England because there were accusations about mutiny and treachery. So yeah, I'm not normally a shipwreck historical fiction fan, but I'm kind of interested in reading this one, and I might read it. But my dad certainly would have enjoyed reading this one. So yes, if books about shipwrecks and British naval history are your jam, then, or you know somebody who enjoys those things, then I'm sure this one would be a popular choice. Another recommendation, a non-fiction recommendation that I've mentioned on my channel before, is Unruly, A History of England's Kings and Queens by David Mitchell, the comedian. And the paperback version of this book just came out. I've got the hardcover version from my father-in-law upstairs. But yeah, this is basically a satirical account of England's history of monarchs, and yeah, my dad would have loved this one, I'm sure, and I plan to read it soon, and when I do, I will let you know my thoughts. Next up, we have another non-fiction book, and this one is called The Earth Transformed, An Untold History by Peter Frankopan. And so this was the author of the book called The Silk Roads, and I do remember my dad reading that book and he enjoyed it, so that's why I thought this one would be a good one to recommend. And I'm actually going to read the synopsis for this one because it is a little bit of a convoluted synopsis, and I wanted to make sure I give good details. So reading an excerpt from Penguin Random House. So it says, global warming is one of the greatest dangers mankind faces today. Even as temperatures increase, sea levels rise, and natural disasters escalate, our current environmental crisis feels difficult to predict and understand. But climate change and its effects on us are not new. In a bold narrative that spans centuries and continents, Peter Frankopan argues that nature has always played a fundamental role in the writing of history. From the fall of the Moche civilization in South America that came about because of the cyclical pressures of El Nino to volcanic eruptions in Iceland that affected Egypt and helped bring the Ottoman Empire to its knees, climate change and its influences have always been with us. Frankopan explains how the Vikings emerged thanks to catastrophic crop failure, why the roots of regime change in 11th century Baghdad lay to the collapse of cotton prices resulting from unusual climate patterns, and why the western expansion of the frontiers in North America was directly affected by solar flare activity in the 18th century. Again and again, Frankopan shows that when past empires have failed to act sustainably, they have been met with catastrophe. Blending brilliant historical writing and cutting-edge scientific research, The Earth Transformed will radically reframe the way we look at the world and our future. So, I mean, that sounds like something that I would love to eat up, so I can't wait to read it. The paperback was out in March, so I hope to get to that one soon. But I'm sure my dad would have also enjoyed that book as well. So if you're somebody who likes to read about history in general and also if you're interested in climate change and how the climate has affected us and we've affected the climate, then I'm sure this book would be right up your alley. Another book to recommend, and this one is a fiction work, and it actually came out last year, so it's not super new, is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. So Barbara Kingsolver, I would say is, even though I've only read Flight Behavior, so I've only read one of her books, I can safely say that her writing style is up there with some of my favorite writing. And this, so Demon Copperhead is a reimagining of David Copperfield by Dickens. I've heard great things about it, and my dad really liked Dickens, and I'm sure he appreciated really good writing as well. So I think he would have enjoyed Demon Copperhead. Have you read Demon Copperhead? If yes, then let me know your thoughts in the comments below without giving anything away. Next up, we have another nonfiction recommendation, and this one isn't even out yet. So this is the Golden Road: How Ancient India Transformed the World by William Dalrymple, I think his name is. And this book comes out in hardback in September. And so this looks at the intellectual and philosophical influence that India played on the modernization of the world, according to the author. It sounds like a really interesting perspective. My dad liked to read a lot of nonfiction history of this ilk, so I'm sure he would have enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm excited to wait and see when it's published and see what the reviews have to say about it. But generally, if it ends up being well received, then I'm likely to pick it up. And if you or anybody in your life really likes reading historical accounts like this, then I'm sure it's one to check out yourselves. Okay, so we've got another nonfiction recommendation, and this one might be a little niche, but to preface, I will say that my dad worked as a technologist his whole life. He worked up in the Arctic, and then he retired, and then he went back into work when my brother and I were old enough to not need to be looked after. And he worked for a physics department as a technologist, and therefore I would recommend Quantum Drama: From the Bohr-Einstein Debate to the Riddle of Entanglement by Jim Baggott and John Heilbron, and this was published in April. And from what I can gather, this is about the 1927 debate on quantum theory. Do I think I'm going to read this? Probably not. Physics is not my thing, but if you or somebody else that you know likes to read about physics, or the history of physics, I should say, then perhaps you should check out Quantum Drama. This would be something that I probably would have picked up from my dad, because he's read quite a lot of things about the history of physics. All right, so moving on, we've got another nonfiction recommendation, and this is Fallen: George Mallory, The Man, the Myth, and the 1924 Everest Tragedy by Mick Confrey, and this just came out in May, and this is a biography about the explorer George Mallory, and it looks at his exploration of Everest and what happened, because he died in that tragedy, obviously a tragedy. So yes, it looks at his life in that event. And my dad liked to read lots of biographies, and he liked to read accounts of exploration, so I'm sure he would have been intrigued by Fallen. So if you like reading that sort of thing, or you know somebody who does, then perhaps check it out. So we've got 3 more to go. The last fiction recommendation I wanted to share with you is called Burma, Sahib by Paul Theroux. And this reimagines George Orwell's time as a policeman in 1920s Burma. My dad liked George Orwell's writing, and I had picked up some other books about George Orwell, maybe like biographical accounts of him, and he enjoyed those. So I thought, oh, he'd probably enjoy this fiction work as well. So yes, if you are a fan of George Orwell and you would want to read more about his life, or you know somebody who does, then maybe check out Burma, Sahib. The penultimate non-fiction recommendation, and this book is not out yet, so this is Nexus, A Brief History of Information Networks from the Stone Age to AI by Yuval Noah Harari. And yeah, as far as I can tell, it's not out yet. I think it comes out in September. So this author wrote the book Sapiens, which was very well received, and my dad did read that and he enjoyed it. So that's why I thought he would have enjoyed reading Nexus as well. Obviously, AI is such an important topic at the moment, and I'm sure will continue to be. So I think it's a really, it sounds like it will be a really interesting and informative look at technology and information systems. Again, I don't know if I would necessarily pick this one up myself because I don't tend to read this type of nonfiction, but I'm sure it will be of interest to many people out there. And the last recommendation, and it's for those people who enjoy war history, particularly the Civil War in the US, is The Demon of Unrest, Abraham Lincoln and America's Road to Civil War by Erik Larson. So Erik Larson's a really well-known history writer. He's written loads of stuff. And I know my dad enjoyed some of the books that he's written, and he was also very interested in Lincoln's life. So I'm sure he would have enjoyed this book as well. And as far as I know, it is out. I think it just came out in May. I haven't seen too many reviews on it, but as I mentioned, Erik Larson is pretty prolific and he generally writes a decent historical narrative. So I'm sure it's one to check out. So yeah, there you have it. That is 12 recommendations from me to my father, from my father to you. If you've read any of these, let me know. If you're interested in reading any of these, also let me know. And if you think any of these books would be a good book to recommend or gift to maybe your father, your grandfather, or any person in your life who likes nonfiction, historical nonfiction and historical fiction, then I hope some of these books are good suggestions for you. So yes, as I'm sure you can gather, I wish I could have shared these with my dad in person, but as I can't, I'm very happy to share them with you. And with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful Father's Day when you get to it. And if you're like me and Father's Day is a little bit of a struggle, then hang in there. I hope you're doing well. With all that being said, I hope you're enjoying whatever it is that you're reading right now, and I will see you soon in a new video. Take care.